Hi, my name is Dr. Crystal Hans. I'm the Director of Forensic Science and an Assistant Professor of Forensic Entomology at Purdue University. And today I'd like to talk to you about citizen detectives in forensic science. So a bit about myself. I'm a forensic entomologist. So I work with insects that are often associated with death investigations. I collect insects as evidence, primarily flies and maggots, often at a crime scene or an autopsy. And the information about the insects is useful in providing a timeline to calculate how long someone has been dead based on the insects that develop on the remains. I'm also an educator and I teach courses in forensic science and forensic entomology at Purdue. In addition to this work, I also serve as an advisor for Uncovered. And today we're going to talk a bit about the work of Uncovered and how citizen detectives can get involved. So we know that there's a cold case crisis in the US. And if we look at some of the statistics, since 1980, more than 200,000 cases have gone cold. And as we've seen in recent times, there's a disconnect in the trust that the public has in law enforcement. And as this continues to worsen, we also see that the clearance rates of these cases has dropped to as low as 57%. So we have a lot of cases that are going cold and are not getting solved. Now, why do we have this cold case crisis? Well, there's a series of different reasons that come down to resources and social parameters. Often the victims of these cases are women, people of color, or members of the LGBTQ plus community, and their cases don't get a lot of media coverage. For law enforcement, in terms of working on cold cases, only about 20% of law enforcement departments have a protocol for how to proceed with a cold case investigation. Only 10% have cold case investigators. Often it's just one investigator who has a particular interest in a case and wants to work on it in their spare time. Only 7% of law enforcement departments have a dedicated formal cold case unit. So we have a severe lack of resources in terms of time and people that are available to work on these cases. In addition, there is information about these cases that is located in a variety of different places. It's often hard to compile and hard to access this information. As this cold case crisis is continuing to grow, we are also seeing a tremendous growth in public interest in true crime. So if any of you are interested in true crime, you probably watch documentaries or read true crime novels or listen to true crime podcasts. And that's because the stories are compelling and you want to learn more. But what if there's a case that really reaches you and you want to do something about it? How can you contribute? What we're trying to do and what the work is Uncovered is trying to address is to engage and activate citizen detectives. So all of these people that have a real interest in true crime, we want them to move their consumption of true crime media to a position of advocacy. We want to get as many citizen detectives involved to have a collective impact. We also want to ensure that this community is inclusive. And we often try to be as victim inclusive as we can when we're talking about these cases. But working on these cold cases also involves digital literacy. And this is something in our modern world, when we're working with electronic formats, this is something that we're continually aware of. We also see that citizen detectives can develop skills. And this can be skills that they previously had coming into this work, or skills that they weren't aware of that they can contribute to make an impact on these cold cases. One of the central mission areas of Uncovered is with cold case visualization. So gathering all of that information that we can find from publicly available sources about these cases that sometimes receive very little media attention, compiling all of that information to create visualizations, maps, timelines sources, and people that may be involved in the case. We're also using reliability scoring to rank these sources and data to make sure that we have credible sources. But by compiling all of this information and creating these visualizations, this makes it much easier to spread awareness about these cases, whether it's showing it to your friend, sharing it on social media, something to garner additional attention for these cases that sometimes have received very little. If you go to the Uncovered website, you'll see a map that currently has 10,000 cases that have been visualized using this database created by Uncovered. So we're starting to have real collective impact with all of the citizen detectives that are working across the country on these various cases. So they may be cases that are local, that have affected them in some way, or that they've heard about, or they grew up learning about these cases, or a case that's on the other side of the country and they just want to help. Now, I've also integrated this idea of citizen detectives and cold case visualizations into educational projects for my forensic science students. And in the forensic investigation course that I teach, I've incorporated a cold case project. So this is from an upcoming conference presentation where I'll be presenting data on the work that my students have done and how to get students engaged in research, information literacy, and data visualization using these cold case investigations. And so my students have been really tremendous, have been very involved in these cases, and have put in a lot of time. And this project involves a series of assessments from reflection assignments, the students reflecting on the case, maybe some of the frustrating elements or the challenges of the case, but also looking at different types of physical evidence that are available and how could they be tested, or generating new theories. What potential leads do we have for these cases that law enforcement could look into? In addition to these assessments, my students are also creating two major deliverables. One is a cold case file. So it's a very detailed spreadsheet that has all of the information about the case that they were assigned, as well as a list of all of the sources that they've been able to locate about that case. They also create a visual display in the form of an infographic. And on this slide, this just shows 3 examples of 3 different infographics that were prepared in the fall on 3 different cases. And so my student groups worked diligently to prepare these visualizations. They have a lot of photos. They're very victim inclusive. They have details about the case, about the evidence, about the circumstances, and they have a timeline. So what was the series of events that led up to either the disappearance or the homicide, and what has happened since then? What developments have been made? These visualizations also have information about who to contact if you know more information. So these have been really wonderful working with the students, getting them involved and getting them to understand how citizen detectives can have a collective impact in helping to solve this dramatic cold case crisis. If you're interested in learning more about Uncovered and the work that we've been doing, please visit the website at uncovered.com. There's a lot of resources there about what it means to be a citizen detective and how you can help this community. So thank you very much. And I hope that you enjoy this content.